Toughest Mudder Canada results, Toughest Mudder Canada storylines, and we give away some free shoes. No guests today. What?
This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast.
Toughest Mudder Canada is in the books, and it was outstanding. Let me hit you with some of the highlights, and then we'll talk about each one later. Ryan Atkins won his third Toughest Mudder, all but guaranteeing a $10,000 bonus for most toughest mileage. Lindsay Webster won her third Toughest Mudder, all but guaranteeing her the $10,000 bonus for most toughest mileage on the women's side. Robert Killian had an epic push to take second place among the men. The promising Toughest Mudder debut of Sean Stevens Whale finishing in third place for the men. The Canadians holding it down in their homeland with 5 of the 6 podium spots going to Canada. Robert Killian was the lone non-Canuck. He stands on guard for we. Tyler Nash made a last-minute trip to Whistler to stay atop the Holy Grail leaderboard, only to be topped by Ryan Atkins himself. The introduction of the Soul Crusher, a quarter-mile-long ski hill at a 37-degree incline, was a game-changer in the second half of the event. But before we get into all those stories, let's give some shoes away. We have partnered with Merrell to give away a pair of the Merrell Agility Peak Flex shoes once a month, every month, until World's Toughest Mudder this year. Merrell is the official shoe of Tough Mudder. They've actually got 3 official Merrell Tough Mudder shoes that are in orange with the Tough Mudder logo and everything. Those are great for the 10 to 12 mile Tough Mudder course. These shoes, the Agility Peak Flex, are a better choice for the longer courses, the Toughest Mudder and World's Toughest. I bought a pair of these a few months ago, and I ran Toughest Atlanta and Toughest Mudder Canada in them this weekend. They're great. I'm going to run World's Toughest Mudder in them this November. All right, so let's pick our winner. Our winner is Jonathan Broadhacker. Congratulations, Jonathan. You'll receive an email from me in a couple days with details on how to claim your prize. If you would like to win a pair of Merrell Agility Peak Flex shoes like Jonathan did, send an email to worldstoughestpodcast@gmail.com with Merrell in the subject line. In the body of the email, put your name, email address, and cell phone number. That will add you to the World's Toughest Podcast winners list, and you'll be in the loop on any exciting announcements we've got around here. Before we get into the stories, let's talk about the numbers, and then we'll get into the results. Toughest Mudder is held on a 5-mile looped course. The goal is to complete as many 5-mile loops as you can within the 8 hours. Toughest Mudder Canada was a difficult course. Whistler, in Canada, obviously, was the 5th Toughest Mudder of the year. The first 4 were held in Los Angeles, Atlanta, England, and Philadelphia. The goal for most non-elite athletes is 25 miles, which will qualify you for contender status at World's Toughest Mudder 2017. At Canada's Toughest Mudder, 91 runners out of 245 qualified as contenders, or 37%. 91 out of 245 hit 25 miles, 37%. So 37% got contender at Toughest Mudder Canada. What does that look like compared to the other 4 toughest courses? Canada had the least number of runners, 245, and the least number of contenders, 91. However, by percentage, Toughest Mudder Philly had far less contenders, 208 out of 717, or 29%. If you'd like to see the numbers for every Toughest Mudder race, contenders, number of runners, and percentage of runners that achieved contender status, go to facebook.com/World's Toughest Podcast. We've got all the numbers listed there. If you take the numbers of everyone who has run all of the Toughest Mudders, you'll get 2,517 people who have run Toughest Mudder. Of those 2,517, 976 of them have completed 25 miles, or 39%. So to summarize, 39% of all Toughest Mudder runners have completed 25 miles. 37% of the Canada's Toughest Mudder runners completed 25 miles. So really, Canada's difficulty level was right there on par with the Toughest Mudder series as a whole. Let's talk about the results. Who won? Who do you think won? For the men, Ryan Atkins in first with 45 miles in 8 hours and 11 minutes. Robert Killian in second with 45 miles in 8 hours and 40 minutes. Sean Stevens Whale in third with 40 miles in 7 hours and 33 minutes. Matthew Hansen in fourth with 40 miles in 7 hours and 53 minutes and 13 seconds. Austin Azar in fifth with 40 miles in 7 hours and 53 minutes and 17 seconds. Austin was 4 seconds behind Matthew. There were 3 more men that also had 40 miles. They were Trevor Sykos, Christian Wykalek, and Chris Mendoza. Ryan Atkins in first. Ryan is the Michael Jordan of OCR. He's won World's Toughest Mudder 4 times and 3 of the 5 Toughest Mudders held this year. If you don't know who Ryan Atkins is, this is probably the first episode of the podcast you're listening to. Robert Killian finished in second place. Robert completed 100 miles in the team category at World's Toughest Mudder last year, finishing only behind Ryan Atkins' team. Robert is one of only 7 people to complete 100 miles at World's Toughest Mudder. We're going to talk about Robert's second place finish in a second. It's amazing. Sean Stevens Whale finished in third place. This was his first competitive Tough Mudder event, but Sean is a well-known competitive stair climber. Like, he's kind of great at it. We're going to talk more about him in a minute. In fourth place was Matthew Hansen. This is Matthew's second Toughest Mudder. He finished in ninth at Toughest Mudder Atlanta, also with 40 miles that time. In fifth place was Austin Azar. Austin is one of the 7 members of the WTM 100 Miler Club. This was his third Toughest Mudder and his third top 5 finish as well. With their top 5 finish, Robert Killian, Sean Stevens Whale, and Matthew Hansen have qualified as elite contenders for World's Toughest Mudder 2017. Ryan Atkins and Austin Azar have already qualified at a previous Toughest Mudder. For the women, Lindsay Webster in first with 35 miles in 7 hours and 39 minutes. Michelle Ford in second with 35 miles in 7 hours and 49 minutes. Allison Ty in third with 35 miles in 7 hours and 54 minutes. Casey Northrup in fourth with 30 miles in 7 hours and 12 minutes. Stephanie Bishop in fifth with 30 miles in 7 hours and 30 minutes. Lindsay Webster has won all 3 of the Toughest Mudders she's run. Lindsay and Ryan are the Tim McGraw and Faith Hill of OCR. Michelle Ford finished in second. This was her first Toughest Mudder event. She ran World's Toughest Mudder in 2015 and completed 40 miles. Allison Ty finished in third place. This is her 4th Toughest Mudder and her 4th top 3 finish, including her win at Toughest Mudder Philly. Allison has more Toughest Mudder podiums than anyone else, male or female. In 4th place was Casey Northrup. Casey also finished in 4th place at Toughest Mudder Atlanta. In 5th place was Stephanie Bishop. Stephanie is the women's reigning champion of World's Toughest Mudder. This is her 3rd Toughest Mudder and her 1st top 5 finish. With their top 5 finish, Michelle Ford and Stephanie Bishop have qualified as elite contenders for World's Toughest Mudder 2017. Lindsay, Allison, and KC have already qualified at a previous Toughest Mudder. There were 3 other women with 30 miles. They were Sarah Seeds, Adrienne Alvord, and Hannah Copper. Ryan and Lindsay have raced and won at 3 Toughest Mudders, at LA, Atlanta, and Canada. Until someone else steps up and rips the win away from Ryan or Lindsay, they are the ones to beat. Neither of them are invincible. Robert Killian and Hunter McIntyre just beat Ryan at the Spartan Super in Monterey a few weeks ago. Hunter beat Ryan at Tougher Mudder in Virginia last week. Hunter hasn't run a toughest yet, though. I expect to see Hunter at Toughest Mudder Chicago in August. Robert Killian matched Ryan Atkins' mileage in Canada. Chad Trammell matched Atkins' mileage at Toughest LA. He just finished 19 minutes behind Ryan there. I expect to see Amelia Boone at Toughest Mudder Chicago also. She's been making her return to racing and already has a few Spartan races under her belt. But she's been clear, don't call it a comeback. She's already said she plans to run World's Toughest Mudder this November. And Amelia used to live in Chicago. So I think Amelia could give Lindsay a run for her money. Allison Ty is clearly strong in these 8-hour races. Allison actually has more toughest podiums than Lindsay, including a win in Philly when Lindsay didn't race. So they're not invincible, but until they lose, Ryan and Lindsay sure look invincible, don't they? The elite contender field is almost set. We have 19 men and 16 women who have finished in the top 5 of a Toughest Mudder race so far. The last chance for Hunter McIntyre, Amelia Boone, and anyone else who wants to qualify as an elite contender and get a shot at the $50,000 bonus prize in Vegas will be at Toughest Mudder Chicago, held on August 26th. So, your 2017 World's Toughest Mudder elite contenders so far. For the men, Ryan Atkins, LA, Atlanta, and Canada. Chad Trammell, LA and UK. Austin Azar, LA, Philly, and Canada. Mark Jones, LA and Philly. Glenn Race, LA. Ryan Woods, Atlanta. Luke Bosek, Atlanta. Tyler Nash, Atlanta. Van Tran, Atlanta. John Albin, UK. Michael Schuett, UK. Lucas Abram, UK. Felix Baker, UK. Trevor Sykos, Philly. Jordan McDougall, Philly. Jesse Bruce, Philly. Robert Killian, Canada. Sean Stevens Whale, Canada. And Matthew Hansen, Canada. Your elite contenders for the women so far are Allison Ty, LA, Atlanta, Philly, and Canada. Sarah Knight, LA, Atlanta, UK. Lindsay Webster, LA, Atlanta, and Canada. Alex Chikorita Rodania, LA, Atlanta, and Philly. Casey Northup, Atlanta, and Canada. Kayla Coblin, LA. April Hartwig, LA. Suzanne Kraus, UK. Ulrich Evanson, UK. Beth Albin, UK. Sorrel Lewis, UK. Zoe Shazin, Philadelphia. Morgan Mackay, Philadelphia. Adrian Alford, Philadelphia. Michelle Ford, Canada. And Stephanie Bishop, Canada. I mentioned the $10,000 bonus. At the end of the 6-race Toughest Mudder series, the mileage results from your top 3 Toughest Mudder races will be added together. The man and woman with the highest total from those top 3 races will win $10,000. Here are the standings for the Toughest Mudder bonus. For the men, Ryan Atkins with 50, 50, and 45 miles for a total of 145. Trevor Sykos with 40, 40, and 40 miles for a total of 120. Austin Azar with 40, 40, and 40 for a total of 120. Tyler Nash with 45, 40, and 35 for a total of 120. Chad Trammell is the only male who really has a shot at Atkins, but he has only raced 2 Toughest Mudders so far. He raced in LA and got 50, and he raced in the UK and got 45. So that's a total of 95. Ryan has 145. At Toughest Mudder Chicago, if Chad gets 50 miles and Atkins gets 45 or less, they will tie for first place. If Chad gets 55 miles and Atkins gets 45 or less, Chad will win the $10,000 bonus prize. Tough Mudder headquarters has not announced any tiebreaker process if there's a tie at the end of the series. So we don't know if someone will win a tiebreaker or if, for example, Chad and Ryan would split the money if they do happen to tie. On the women's side, Lindsay Webster has 45, 40, and 35 for a total of 120. Allison Ty has 40, 35, and 35 for a total of 110 miles. Sarah Knight has 35, 35, and 35 for a total of 100 miles. At Toughest Chicago, here is how Allison Ty or Sarah Knight could tie Lindsay Webster. It won't be easy for either of them. First, Lindsay can't finish Chicago with more than 35 miles. If that happens, Lindsay finishes with 35 or less. If that happens, Allison Ty can equal Lindsay by running 45 miles. Allison running 45 and Lindsay running 35 or less would put them in a tie at 120 miles. If Lindsay runs 35 or less and Sarah Knight runs 55 miles, Sarah and Lindsay would be in a tie for first place. That would be crazy. No one's run 55 miles yet. But it's possible. But here's the bottom line. At Toughest Chicago, if Ryan runs 50 and Lindsey gets 40, they're pretty much unreachable. Let's talk about the rest of those highlights I mentioned. We already talked about Ryan and Lindsey. They are now 3 for 3 in Toughest Mudders, and they are expected to run Toughest Mudder Chicago in August. Toughest Mudder Chicago will be the last of the 6 Toughest Mudder races. It will be one of the 4 Toughest Mudder races to be televised by CBS this summer, including Toughest LA, Toughest Atlanta, and Toughest Philly. Toughest LA will be the first one to air on July 22nd. To find the CBS station in your area, check your local listings or ask your mother. Robert Killian. If you've been following all the toughest races, you'll remember Ryan Atkins had an epic comeback at Toughest LA to snatch first place away from Chad Trammell. If you weren't there or don't know what I'm talking about, make sure to watch Toughest LA on CBS on July 22nd. TiVo it. Watch it twice. Killian's comeback at Toughest Canada was on a similar level, but for different reasons. Let me tell you a short story. At every toughest race so far, here's how the timing works. It's officially an 8-hour race. The race starts at midnight. At 7:45, the start line is closed down. You can no longer begin any new laps after 7:45. At 8:30, the finish line is closed. If you don't finish your last lap by 8:30, none of those 5 miles you just completed will count toward your total. At the starting line, I said a couple times, it is not humanly possible to complete a lap in 45 minutes. And everyone chuckles because Atkins is usually standing right there next to Nolan. And Atkins has done several laps in less than 45 minutes over the 3 toughest mudders he's run. So 7:45, start line closes. 8:30, the finish line closes. Well, at Toughest Mudder Canada, they had a problem at the beginning. The pack in the front that took off like a rocket at the beginning of the race, they were let off course. That group ended up losing about 12 minutes on their first lap because of that mistake by TMHQ. So, Tough Mudder headquarters told everyone in that group that they would have until 8:42 to finish their last lap to make it right. Included in that group, who would get an extra 12 minutes, was Robert Killian and Sean Stevens-Whale. So, as the race was running down, it was clear that Atkins was going to win. Ryan took the lead during the 6th lap, and he led the rest of the way. Sean Stevens-Whale was keeping up with him through about lap 5, but as Ryan pulled away, it became a battle between Robert Killian and Sean Stevens-Whale for second place. Sean was about 18 minutes ahead of Robert for laps 6 and 7. When Sean crossed the finish line for lap 8, after finishing 40 miles, it was 7:27 a.m. Sean crossed the line in second place, about 18 minutes behind Atkins, who was already back on the course for his 9th and final lap. Atkins finished with 45 miles. Sean finished with 40 miles. Sean didn't know it at the time, but he was 13 minutes ahead of Robert Killian. So Sean opted to call it there. He thought his second place was secure. Robert Killian crossed the finish line to complete his lap 8 at 7:40. He crossed the line in third place, and he knew he had until 8:42 to finish another lap if he wanted second place. His previous lap, his 40-mile lap, had taken 58 minutes and 47 seconds. I don't know if Robert knew his split times or not, but I know he knew his only shot at going from third to second was to do another lap. So he went for it. He crossed the start line for his last lap, his 9th lap, at 7:42. Now, once a runner is out on the course, he is out there. Other than the computer with the split times, there's no way to tell where he is. So everyone was gathered around the racing tent watching to see when Robert crosses the timing mat, seeing if he has any chance to cross the finish line by 8:42. The first mile is the most difficult. I'll talk about that why in a minute, but basically there's a giant ski hill on the first lap, on the first mile of each lap. So the first mile took Robert more than 19 minutes. He crossed the 1 mile mark at 8:01. He has to finish this lap by 8:42. The second mile took 13 minutes. He crossed the second map at 8:15. The first 2 miles of the 5-mile course had the most treacherous terrain. It had the ski lift. It had single track trails. It had roots. It had little rivers you had to jump over. Once Robert got through those first 2 miles, it was a lot, as far as the terrain went, it was a lot better, a lot faster for running. After the 2 mile mark, Kilian started to speed up. His third mile took 12 minutes and 29 seconds. He crossed the third mat at 8:27. He finished his third mile at 8:27. He has to finish by 8:42. He has 2 miles left, and it's 8:27. He speeds up again. Mile 4 took him 10 minutes and 24 seconds. It's 8:37, and he has 1 mile left. So we're standing around the finish line watching these numbers come in, and we can tell he's speeding up. We're looking for him, even though we know he's like a mile away. Sean Stevens-Whale is getting nervous. The announcer is on the microphone trying to talk to Robert. Robert Kilian, you have 5 minutes left. 5 minutes. Robert Kilian, you have 4 minutes left. 4 minutes, Robert Kilian. Robert Kilian, you have 3 minutes left. 3 minutes until the finish line is closed. 2 minutes until the end of Toughest Mudder Canada. Kilian passed the 4 mile mark at 8:37. We saw him round the corner, hop this small creek, and head for the finish line. He crossed the finish line at 8:40 and 42 seconds. He ran his last mile in 4 minutes and 49 seconds. That was his 45th mile in 4 minutes and 49 seconds. It was amazing, just amazing. Well done, Robert Kilian. Outstanding. I don't want to take anything away from the guy who finished in third place, Sean Stevens-Whale. When I saw his name on the leaderboard, I did not know who he was. This was his first competitive Tough Mudder race, but he's actually a highly decorated competitive stair climber. He set a record for climbing the CN Tower in Toronto in 9 minutes and 54 seconds. He beat 9,000 other people at that time. How many steps? That's 1,776 steps in 9 minutes and 54 seconds. He also ran the steps of the Eiffel Tower in Paris in 8 minutes and 30 seconds. That's only 1,665 steps, though. So he's won races at the Stratosphere in Las Vegas and competed at the Empire State Building in New York and a ton of other places. He's one of the best in the world at tower running, they call it. That's one of the great things about OCR and endurance OCR, especially like Toughest Mudder and World's Toughest Mudder. It doesn't matter your background. It really doesn't. If you can suffer, you can be great. Ryan Atkins comes from a mountain biking background. Sean Stevens-Whale is a tower runner. Robert Kilian's in the military. Chad Trammell and Chris Mendoza are dentists. Amelia Boone is a lawyer. When I watch Ninja Warrior with my son, if you want to be good at that show, you have to be a rock climber or maybe a gymnast or a TV weatherman, I guess. But other than that, you're out of luck. It doesn't matter what you did before OCR. All that matters is, can you take the punishment and smile back at it? And you can be great at it. I'm happy to see guys like Sean Stevens-Whale venturing over into our sport. Another big storyline at Toughest Canada was the Canadians. 5 of the 6 podium spots were filled by our all-dressed chip-eating friends to the north. For the women, Lindsay Webster in first lives in Ontario. Michelle Ford in second lives in British Columbia, the best of the Columbias. And Allison Ty in third also lives in British Columbia. Hang on. All right. So I just looked up places named Columbia online, and there's like 50 of them. So as far as I know, British Columbia is the nicest of the Columbias. It's definitely the nicest Columbia I've ever been to. Don't email me because you live in Columbia, South Dakota, and it's way better than British Columbia. First of all, no, I doubt that very much. Second of all, no, just don't. On the men's side, Ryan Atkins is in first, is also from Ontario with his wife, Lindsay Webster. They are the Sonny and Cher of obstacle course racing. In third place is Sean Stevens-Whale from the best Columbia I've ever been to. The lone non-Canadian was American Robert Kilian. Another notable storyline at Toughest Mudder Canada was Tyler Nash, or Nashty, as he likes to write on his bib. Last week, the Holy Grail leaderboard went live early in the week with the mileage results from all the tougher, toughest, and the upcoming World's Toughest Mudder added together, with everyone ranked. I say ranked there were no numbers down the side. If you wanted to know like where you fell on the list, you had to count down from the top. But at the top of the list was a guy named Tyler Nash. I don't know if Tyler knew how high up he was on the list before they posted it, but once the list got posted, Tyler said, if I get a chance to win this, I need to take it. So he got a last-minute trip to Canada, bought a ticket. Him and his dad went up. His dad paid it for him. I saw his dad out there. And he went up there to log some miles and to stay on top of the board. He finished in 9th overall with 35 miles. He did good. He was in that group that had an extra 12 minutes to finish their last lap, and he went for it. He was pushing for 40, but he came up a few minutes short, and his last lap did not officially count. As it stands now, Tyler's in second place with 150 miles behind only Ryan Atkins, who has 155 miles. Tyler, I know you're listening. Ryan will put up 50 more at Chicago and then 100 plus in Vegas this November. If you want to beat him for the Holy Grail leaderboard, you need to put up 35 or 40 at Chicago, 75 or 80 at Worlds, and then between now and then, you need to go find every Tougher Mudder you can get to and get those 10 sweet, sweet miles. You can beat him. I want to talk about 3 more things before I stop. Look, I know other than my mother and Matt B. Davis, no one's listening to this podcast to hear my voice. This is kind of an unusual episode. Shoot me an email at willhicks@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of it. I don't plan on making it a regular thing, going guest-free, but there's so much to talk about from Toughest Canada. Before I get to those last 2 things, if you're enjoying the podcast and want to let me know, here's 3 things you could do in descending order of how excited they make me. If you haven't left a review for the show on iTunes, could you do that for me? Matt B. Davis of the Obstacle Racing Media Podcast and I were talking about reviews and fake reviews, and we were looking at some of the other podcasts out there. I can't speak for Matt, but I feel like we're both proud that all of our reviews are from real people who have listened to the show. So that'd be great. If you leave a review for the show, I'd be your biggest fan. The second thing you can do is subscribe to our winners list. Shoot me an email at worldstoughestpodcast@gmail.com with subscribe in the subject line and 3 things in the body of the email. Your name, your email address, and your cell phone number. That'll put you on our winners list to win prizes like the Merrill shoes we gave away a few minutes ago. And it'll let me get in contact with you with big announcements regarding the show and directions to my house for the big Easter party with the taco truck. Third thing you could do if you're still wanting to pitch in is like the Facebook page, facebook.com/worldstoughestpod. Leave us a review there. So iTunes, winners list, Facebook page. No pressure though. Seriously, I am just happy if you're listening to the podcast. And if you keep listening, awesome. If there's something you like or you don't like, shoot me an email or leave a review. I'd love to hear about it. All right, last couple things. One of the first things people talk about when they talk about World's Toughest Mudder is the cliff. The cliff is a 35-foot drop off of a platform into Lake Las Vegas. That's it. It's a pretty simple obstacle. You walk off a platform and you fall. It's a cliff jump and it's scary. One of the things that makes it notable is it's built into the course. It's part of the terrain in Las Vegas. If/when Tough Mudder headquarters moves World's Toughest Mudder away from Las Vegas, the cliff isn't coming with it. They can't pack it up like they can do Funky Monkey, stick it in a truck and drive away. It's a permanent fixture at that one location. And that's the first thing I thought of when I saw the Soul Crusher. The Soul Crusher is what they called the ski hill at Toughest Mudder Canada. The Olympics sent skiers down it in 2010. Red Bull sends racers up it for a race called the Red Bull 400 every year. It's about a quarter mile long, but long isn't really the right way to say it. It's uphill, very steep, 37-degree angle is what they say it's at. Your treadmill at the gym probably only goes up to 15 degrees. Most of the people I saw as I went up the hill had to eventually resort to crawling on all fours to get all the way up. And it just kept going. Honestly, going back to Robert Killian for a second, that's one of the most amazing things to me. He went back out for another lap, knowing this blasted mountain was waiting for him. Good for him, man. So people have been speculating for 2 or 3 years now, where will TMHQ move World's Toughest when they leave Vegas? Last year, people were talking about Houston, and it turned out to be Vegas again. This year, there are murmurs about Atlanta. It's not going to be Atlanta. Sorry, Matt. I think wherever they eventually choose will have some kind of epic terrain like the Cliff, like the Soul Crusher. And I hope I don't know if they're going to go to Whistler. I don't think so. But if they did, I hope they change the name from the Soul Crusher to something like The Hill. I love the contrast between the worst obstacle having the sweetest, simplest name, like the Cliff, the Hill. So I'm not saying they're moving Worlds to Whistler, but I'm not saying it. Wherever they go, I think they'll look for some kind of epic obstacle that will stay with the course, like the Cliff or like the Soul Crusher. Last bit of news before we do some iTunes reviews. Ian Panter is doing much better. You may remember Ian from a few episodes ago. We talked about him. Ian ran World's Toughest 2016 and Toughest Mudder Atlanta this year. He just run Tough Mudder Michigan a few weeks ago when the car that he was a passenger in was hit as they left the course. Ian was in a coma for a while. Here is the latest update from Facebook. I'll just read it. Ian has been improving every day. We had a normal 2-way conversation about swim meets, his house, the rehab food, and what he's been doing in PT and OT. He got a little confused at a few points, but also said he was getting tired. His stomach has been bothering him a bit, but he's only been eating real food for a few days, so it may take time for his digestive system to catch up. Overall, it was great to see him in bed and bored. Unfortunately, he's not ready for visitors yet, but appreciates the cards and pictures. I'm showing him a little of Facebook at a time, and it makes him smile and laugh. Thank you all so much for asking about him and sending your love and strength and support. Can't wait to see what another week in rehab will do for such a tough mudder. That is great to hear. Very happy to hear Ian's doing better and on the route to recovery. Let's read some iTunes reviews. First from Canada. Awesome content, 5 stars, by MSTRCST. Literally installed iTunes to leave this review. Will does a great job with interviews and coverage. It's my first year getting into competitive Tough Mudder events, and these podcasts keep the excitement and hype up for the future. Good luck in Whistler and Chicago. Thank you, MST. I hope to see you in Vegas this year. And then from the United Kingdom. Brilliant. 5 stars. By SMF2379. I did Toughest Europe and found that this podcast was very helpful and informative. Keep up the good work. Thank you, SMF2379. And congratulations on Toughest Europe. Well done. Let me know if you have any plans for World's Toughest in Vegas this year. willhicks@gmail.com. So I'm running a little contest between the UK, Canada, and Australia. And over the last 2 weeks, they're all tied up at 1 review each. I need a winner, guys. And hey, if you're from Senegal or whatever and you want to jump in, let me know. There's like 155 different iTunes stores, and I have no intention of scrolling through all of them every week. But if you're from a non-US country and you leave a review, shoot me an email and let me know. willhicks@gmail.com. I'll track it down and I'll read it next week. If you'd like to leave a review for the show that I can read on air, please go to iTunes and search Tough Mudder, the first podcast that pops up. Click the show logo and then click Ratings and Reviews. Click Write a Review and type away. It'll take you literally 20 seconds. Unless you live out in the country. Internet's slow out there. Alright guys, that's it for the one-man show. Again, this is just going to be a once in a long while type of thing. I would like your feedback though. Shoot me an email at willhicks@gmail.com or leave a review on iTunes. Be honest, I'm a big boy. I can take it. Fear not, we'll be talking to the elites and the non-elites, the regular Joes who are in Canada over the next couple episodes. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot, you guys.